Good afternoon, everybody from Australia. This is the Global Digital Asset Regulatory Summit, and my name is Amy Rose. I'm the Managing Director of the Digital Economy Council of Australia. We've been all around the world so far, well, halfway around the world, actually. We just had a conversation with some key industry stakeholders in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam. All of those recordings will be found in the lobby or in your sessions for the next day or two. So you'll be able to look at that. And then all the recordings will be found on our YouTube channel. We're going to go over to India now. We're joined by Michi Chan, VP Regulatory Compliance at Crypto.com. And she's going to be having a conversation with Mr. Dilip Chenoy. Now, we are very, very, very lucky to have Dilip join us today. He has served as the Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce. He's a Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the National Skill Development Corporation. He really is a renowned figure in the policy domain, and his expertise and contributions have been invaluable in the Indian business landscape. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them both to the stage, and I'm going to do a little round of applause too. Silent one, perhaps. Here we go. Thank you. I'll leave you to it.
Thank you, Amy Rose. Hello, good to be here with you all. My name is Michi, as Amy Rose said. I do compliance at Crypto.com for Australia. For the next 20 minutes, we'll be exploring the regulation of VDAs, or virtual digital assets, in India with our very special guest, the chairman of the Bharat Web3 Association of India, Dilip Chenoy. Dilip, welcome. Great to see you. You've had your morning walk, so I guess you're fresh. We're ready to go. Let's start with the landscape. The Indian VDA sector has had its fair share of ups and downs, including back in 2018 when there was an indirect ban on cryptocurrencies, which was then subsequently lifted in 2020 thanks to a Supreme Court judgment that acknowledged that the dual nature of VDAs, saying that it's not recognized as legal tender, but can perform many functions of real currency. So this has led to a raft of regulatory measures now coming into play. Dilip, can you talk us through the regulatory landscape that has since unfolded?
Thank you, Michi, and thank you, the Digital Economy Council of Australia, for having me here. You mentioned the Supreme Court ban and then the Supreme Court judgment, right? What has happened since then? There are different elements and different parts of the government that have stepped in to regulate different elements around the whole blockchain and virtual digital asset ecosystem. The first, of course, was the CERT-In, which is our, kind of cyber regulatory organization, which mandated that the virtual digital asset providers and those in the ecosystem have to mandatorily comply with cybersecurity and reporting requirements. We then, have a very popular cricket tournament in India, and a lot of exchanges were putting some interesting ads there. So we have a self-regulatory body called the Advertising and Standards Council of India, which actually then laid down a framework for crypto advertising and put in a very strict disclaimer. Then, in between, there were two kind of draft bills which were introduced in 2020, 2021, which even toyed with the idea of banning cryptocurrencies, right, and promoting CBDC, but those did not see the light of day. And then under the FATF framework, the Financial Intelligence Unit in India required all VASP, that is virtual digital asset service providers, to mandatorily register with the FIU and also do suspicious transaction reporting and kind of comply with all their standards in that case. Then we had the February 2022 budget, which defined virtual digital assets and then imposed taxation on it, including a 1% tax deduction at source whenever sale transactions are made in virtual digital assets, looking at a 30% taxation for gains and non-setting up of losses. Meanwhile, we also have a federal kind of a structure. So the virtual digital asset adoption as not in the currency sense, but in use cases sense, and the blockchain thing. So many states around the country were putting up sandboxes or using blockchain and other technology to do various applications, which were not really regulated. So the main regulations which are in place today are the advertising, the reporting frame, and the taxation framework.
Interesting. The taxation framework sounds a little bit extreme. How is the industry and how have the users taken it?
Actually, the challenge here was that since this is a global industry, right? You could be in any country, investing in any country, and it's not necessary, and it's also anonymous if you choose it to be, right? And therefore, you can do peer-to-peer transactions. You can do a lot of other transactions. You can transact on exchanges that are overseas, right? And kind of escape the TDS and the taxation framework if you're sitting in India. In fact, that's what actually happened. And then therefore, the authorities actually then tried to identify the top 6 or 7 global exchanges that were operating in India. And under the Information Technology Act, where they can block certain URLs, right? They block those URLs. Out of them, some have opted officially to pull out of India. Some have already registered, like Binance and KuCoin, for example. Others are in the process. And some are evaluating their kind of strategy for India and looking at it. And there are, of course, in this whole ecosystem, there are good players and bad players, and some of the not so good players are looking at virtual private networks and other things to actually look at that. But I think the investors in India are realizing the importance to work through recognized exchanges going forward.
And at the G20 summit back in, I think it was it last year, around this time last year, it was very positive for India being at the forefront of global efforts to try and harmonize regulatory reforms. Do you still see signs of that around in particularly in the latest pieces of regulation that have come into play?
Yeah, so Michi, there were two under the G20 framework. There were 2 different things happening, right? There was a kind of a global coordination happening at one end, and the G20 was using the Financial Stability Board and the IMF, as well as the International Bank of International Settlements, right, to create frameworks and position papers. So eventually, just before the adoption of the regulation or the framework in G20, there was an IMF FSP synthesis paper, right, which actually gave a complete roadmap in terms of 8 to 9 different elements, including environmental law, reporting, CBDC, right, the structure of exchanges, the need to have exchanges, the whole, the custody and the exchange function, separated and things. The whole set of recommendations were there. And there's a timeline, right? And as of now, according to that timeline, the FSB was to come up with something mid-2024. And there were 2 parts of it, looking at the discussion that was held in the Japan session earlier and the emphasis on stable coins. So stable coins was one part of the regulation and non-stable coins was the other part of the regulation. So we are seeing at least the FSP and the IMF kind of taking up and sticking to the timelines for their discussion papers, and keeping in view the timeline for India. Just about a few weeks ago, the Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs announced that a consultation paper on regulation in this sector is most likely to be launched in mid-end or September or early October. So as of now, everything looks on track, right? Unfortunately, we had an election in between, so that may have delayed it by 2 or 3 months.
Yes.
But again, let's see. All of us are keeping our fingers crossed, and since it's a global kind of, it'll be great to have all the associations and all the entities who are participating in this event to also look at the paper and give us suggestions, and that we could actually convey to the government.
Noted, thank you. So what about the challenges with the raft of new measures that have come out in such a short period of time? There can sometimes be unintended consequences. You mentioned the tax law, and I know that would have impact on investors. Where do you see challenges in regulation at the moment?
So I think, as far as the advertising is concerned, I think the companies are, adhering to it. As far as the reporting entities that are registered with the FIU, we're able to, kind of comply with it. And certain requirements, also we're trying to comply with it. There has been an incident in India, which we are now talking to certain and the other agencies here to address that. The challenges really are because of the lack of kind of a regulatory framework. There seems to be reluctance in using, tokenized blockchain applications in different parts of the economy, right? Second, I think the challenge is that given the the entities that are operating in this space, right? Although the 2018 ban was overruled by the Supreme Court, etc., there seems to be a challenge in banking rails and banking services there. And unfortunately, there's no distinction between investment and non-investment use cases. So the development of the sector is actually facing a challenge. And of course, the taxation rates and everybody who thinks that they can look at a lower taxation jurisdiction or try to avoid this are also doing that. And that's actually creating a bad kind of a image of this system, right? And then, of course, the challenge here is that it may not be a crypto-related crime. FTX and the others also had the impact in India, but it might be some normal banking scam. But it comes out in the reported by the media. It's a crypto scam.
Yes.
So the image of the industry is this is something which is used by certain sections of the society and not law-abiding society, etc., to use as their payment method or for ransom or for whatever it is. And then, of course, the hacks and the other things and the rug pulls and all of that is also not lending a good kind of image to the system.
There are so many parallels in what you've just described to what we see in Australia, and you're probably very familiar as well, considering that you have the relationship that you have with DICA too. But we're also experiencing issues with the digital currency providers and their banking and services rails, having also issues with the image and having everything that's scam or scam related is automatically crypto is automatically scam related. I think to many everyday Australians, just that's how they see crypto. It's a bit of a shame. I guess I can't help but listening to you talk about the challenges. I can't help but think that there's something in here that because I've read quite a lot of pieces about the I guess, active engagement by the government and also by your association as well to do things like releasing guidance on token listing, token listing. And I also saw some kind of self-regulatory framework by the Reserve Bank or something. It seems there's something there, and I kind of just wonder, you know.
Michi, I think there are two things happening for the fintech sector. Of course, the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, had issued guidelines for forming self-regulatory organizations in the fintech sector. I think there were 3 applications. I think a body called FACE has been kind of, there's an announcement by the RBI that they have been accepted as a SRO in that space. I think Japan is a good example for an SRO in this space, in our space, in crypto space there. So that's a good model. But pending regulation and to look at improving the image of the industry in India, we did a lot of things proactively. We have about 48 members now. I heard that the Indonesia started with 7. We started also with 7 incidentally, but now we are 48 actually. And we first brought out consumer guidelines because there are 3 things which really impact governments. One is consumer protection, other is money laundering, and all of that aspect here, and then looking at stability. So what we did was we issued a consumer guideline where members were to voluntarily look at it. All right, and which most of the members have said that they have complied. The second thing that we issued was token listing guidelines, right? How do you list tokens here? And we took a leaf out of many international examples, including Indonesia, which is a similarly developing country, which whitelisted 250 tokens, etc. So we and worked with our overseas. We have international members also as our members. Anyone who's interested in operating in India, operating with Indian residents. So we got out the token listing guidelines. We are now in the process of developing cybersecurity guidelines and also a standard operating procedure and other related aspects to dealing with hacks, because that has become an important thing here, and proactively doing that. We're also anticipating the regulatory paper, creating a draft regulatory framework with ourselves to share with the authorities whenever appropriate.
Oh, thanks so much for that. My question was if there was anything that you would recommend or any kind of tips for successes that we could learn for India's successes in Australia, and that's a pretty good wrap up. Thank you. I remember in our previous conversation that you mentioned that India has the highest adoption of VDA, highest VDA investors globally. Is that right? So I think the Chainalysis report says that India leads the world in grassroots crypto adoption. Where do you see the future of this, and what does it mean for India's financial future?
The 2020 report of Chenoy's Global Crypto Adoption Index actually highlighted India as the #1, and especially adoption across various sectors and demographics, right? If you look at our organization is known as Bharat Web3 Association, right? So, we believe that Web3 is really going to be the future of internet going forward, just as we transition between Web 1, Web 2. And all applications would be, including the metaverse, would be actually based on Web 3. And India, with its demographic advantage, I think Vietnam also mentioned their own demographic advantage in the earlier session, and with the high crypto adoption rates and the decentralized nature of this, gives a huge opportunity for citizens of India to use Web3 technologies as a means to productive engagement and productive employment, right? And position India as a major global Web3 hub going forward. We are already known. We were known in Web 2 as a good service provider to the world. Hopefully, with Web3 and the development of applications here. We would be an application provider to the world as we are, quietly in the telecom space. But I think this is a great opportunity for the youth of India. And it's a great opportunity for young people around the world to collaborate. I'm amazed whether it's in the media, Web3 media sector, or in the Web3 companies, you always find an Indian as either the CTO or one of the co-founders or someone there. And I think it's an opportunity for the country as such to collaboratively work with the others around the world and, make a difference to, I think, humanity as we go forward. Because a lot of these applications here are going to benefit, improve productivity, going to benefit different sectors, health, environment, climate change, all the pressing engagements. I think we have solutions that could be built and scaled, despite the challenges that people say you can't scale, Web3 applications, the environment unfriendly. But I think the companies are working on both on-chain, off-chain solutions, zero-knowledge solutions. And I believe this is really going to transform the world. And we hope that India will have a position in that. And we at BWA can play a small catalytic role in enabling that transformation to happen.
Do you believe that the government is also seeing these opportunities as well?
Yes, we actually, it's very interesting. So there's a position that blockchain is good and crypto is bad. Okay, so I think the whole issue really arises from the financial sector seeing crypto as an alternate to currency. So going to impact money supply, going to impact a lot of things, destabilize the economy, dollarize the economy. I think as an industry association, as an industry sector, we have to collaboratively work to address the fears and put in regulations. I mean, MiCA is a good regulation which says how you can control the number of transactions in a day, what you can do, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have to do that going forward. And if we have a CDAC, it's a government institution in India which is doing pioneering work in blockchain, right? But the token is hidden, right? We have applications here, like let's say the Drive, which is an alternate to, let's say, Uber or this, right? In India, they don't use a token, but in Dubai, where the regulations are different, they're actually using a token, right? So I think I see this this going forward. I don't know if I've answered your question correctly, but I've tried to.
Yeah. You have. I still have one more follow-up question, though.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when Amy Rose is going to come on and kick us off. But I wonder from an economic perspective. So with this huge opportunity that's there, are you seeing changes in, for example, education to upskill the people, the young people to get into working in crypto, blockchain, Web3?
Yeah, actually, yes. I think this is an area where there's global collaboration required, right? I think in the whole virtual digital asset space, we need to collaborate across associations, across countries. But what's happening is every base level chain, whether it's Polygon or whether it is Avalanche or whether it is Algorand, you take a chain or the Ethereum movement, right? Or even the others, they all are looking at targeting education programs and giving people access to their chains in colleges and schools, etc. And I think that you're seeing that happen in a disorganized kind of a way. I used to head the National Skill Development Corporation in India. We had set up a sector skill council in the IT space. They have developed certain job roles, on the whole programming side. It's known as future skills. It's going to happen. But I think the Argentinian example, which I just read a few days ago, where they've introduced Ethereum in schools, is a great example to follow. We need to introduce this in schools because this is going to be very vital going forward. And you have to put it, we have to make, we have an MOU with the Maharashtra State Skills University. We are working with other universities or associations where we develop coursework and develop curriculum and sharing with them and getting people from industry to engage with them so that they can be employed after that. But this is such a skill. Once you learn it, you just need a computer and a space to sit, and you can actually contribute from sitting from your home, right? You don't need the large computers or large servers like you required in a Web2 ecosystem.
Absolutely. That's very exciting. I feel like India's on the cusp of something very big. Well, we
Yeah.
have our fingers crossed for you for the consultation paper that should be coming out. I think it is this month or next month. Sorry, next month.
Next month after, yeah.
Yeah, fingers
We
crossed.
right, we're actually on the weekend month end, right? It's a combination of weekend and a month end.
Fingers crossed for you. Thank you so much for the insights. I see Amy Rose is here just on time, just in time. We will watch with keen interest what happens in India. Thank you, Deka, for having us, and thank you again, Dilip, for spending time here.
Thank you, Amy Rose, and thank you, Deka, for
Thank
having me.
you. Good to see you both. Everyone loves the consultation paper. We're just as excited for you, Dilip, for that to arrive for you over in India. We're going to head to a break now for 20 minutes, and then that will take us through from 1:45 all the way up till 5:30. So we've got another 4 or 5 hours to go, covering the remainder of the globe. And we're going to cover a fair chunk of Australia with some of our stakeholders here who are going to talk about taxation, what we've talked a little bit about today, Dilip, with what's happening in India. I do wonder if there's going to be some similarities, and I feel that there probably will be. And that's part of the purpose of this whole event, is to compare and contrast. And I mean, for myself, Dilip, I did learn a lot from yourself and what's happening over in India, and maybe even a little bit about what we can expect, because you've just got the uptick and the uptake for digital assets, and also obviously blockchain more so, blockchain over crypto. I get that. We're probably seeing that here. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. I will jump off and we will see the audience at 1:45 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So about 15 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michi. Keep in touch.